Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
And today we have a special panel. It's about education. We have 4 illustrious school leaders who are here to combine their thoughts. It will be a little more, it will be regulated, however, as far as timing goes and questions. But again, this is inspired brainstorming. So however they choose to answer, I'll be delighted because it is a growth that we're hoping for. We're at the tail end of many things entering a new world. Big planets are making major changes. Pluto, Aquarius, Saturn, Pisces. That's the social energies of living. Besides dwarf planet Sedna going into Gemini, if we even want to consider that. And right now we are retrograde. So it's a good time to rethink these things. I know Hermes wanted to talk. That's why I was a little delayed. So our title tonight is Envisioning Astrology and Education, how to serve and support students seeking soul growth versus the aspiring professional astrologer. So these can be shared, but yet they often begin with different motives. With less to say and more to begin, we will begin to connect. Yes, CATIE, CADGE. Let's see. Can we have these slides, Nathan? Okay, thank you. Oops. Yeah, thank you. Okay, here we are in the beginning, and we'll get back to that one. CATIE CADGE is a master evolutionary astrologer, and we can see, oh, well, I guess this is how it'll be. And she's certified through the Forrest Apprenticeship program, and at this point, co-created and is the Dean of Instruction at the Forrest Center for Evolutionary Astrology, called FCEA. She writes the curriculum, teaches, oversees all the courses and levels of instruction. CATIE offers astrology consultations and the founder of her own practice, Evolutionary Astrology, there in Santa Cruz, California. She holds a PhD in art history, a tenured faculty member, college professor since 1999, that's a few years, at De Anza College, Cupertino, California, and been studying astrology since the 1980s. And a member of our organizations of Professional Astrology, International Society of Astrology Research, and National Council of Cosmic Research, and an online teacher for 14 years. Thank you so much, CATIE. It's good to have you again. And you helped spearhead this idea that I had cooking. So here we are. My next slide is Omari Martin. And Omari Martin holds a BBA accounting degree, Master of Accounting and Financial Management degree, and he's graduating this spring with a PhD in Business Management Accounting. He teaches accounting and finance classes in a traditional classroom online, and teaches astrology. A certified professional astrologer, life member, American Federation Astrologers, president of the Friends of Astrology, Inc., life member organization for professional astrology, and chairman of Kepler College of the Astrological Arts and Sciences, which he is representing today in that capacity too. And I'm reading this partly because we have a podcast and the podcast can't see what we can see. So I'm listening to Hermes. Omari practices and teaches natal, electional, vocational, and mundane astrology and owns Solar Wisdom. And all of these will be on a slide. And Astropreneurship, which he has patented and has his own. He in 2020, Omari was on, no, it was 2021. Omari was on in May explaining about astropreneurship, so you can go back to any of those archives and see it. Omari presents at national, international conferences, NORWAC for several years, United Astrology Conference, Indian Institute of Oriental Heritage, Astrological Association of Great Britain, International Society of Astrological Research, and Friends of Astrology, where you are also the president, and several chapters of NCGR. And also a regular guest on KUBU, which I believe is in Chicago, 96.5. So thank you. Thank you, Omari. It's a treat to have you back. The third panelist is Wendy Stacy. Wendy Stacy is in the UK, and she has several degrees. She has a Bachelor of Arts, a Master's of Arts. She is also a DIP, I think, is, Wendy, what does that exactly?
That is the LSA, London School of Astrology.
Okay, thank you very much. And that is in Great Britain, England. Wendy is the principal of the International Mayo School of Astrology and the chair of the Astrological Association since 2002, which is now 20 years. Wendy has written numerous articles for the Astrological Journal, author of Consulting with Astrology, Uranus Square Pluto, and soon to be published 2 books, COVID-19 Through the Microscopic Lens of Astrology, we can get some understanding, and Unaspected Planets, always a rogue situation. I'm adding this. Wendy has contributed to The New Generation, The Professional Astrologer, and Bitcoin. And in 2014, Wendy received the prestigious Charles Harvey Award for exceptional service to astrology. And every fortnight, that's every 2 weeks, I believe, yes, on a Thursday, and of course, you'd need to check for your own time zone, Wendy runs a free webinar on current affairs. And you can register, and there's a link here. And that's through the Mayo Astrology. So thank you. Thank you, Wendy. It's a treat. It'll be great to hear. And last and never least is Tony Howard. Tony is the founder of astrologyuniversity.com, and his writing has been featured in the Mountain Astrologer, the anthologies Astrology, and the Next Generation, and the Book of Music Horoscopes. I think that would be fascinating. He teaches astrology online, coaches clients, hosts the Astrology University podcast, and a popular lecturer at many conferences. His mission is to make empowering astrology accessible, to increase the cross-pollination of astrological discourse through online education. I just remembered, I think I didn't add something to Wendy's, but that's okay. We're on target. I'm staying with you, Tony. Tony, the Astrology University includes courses with master astrologers and a 4-year program. And including, it also holds Dane Rudhar's library, all kinds of recordings. Go there. Their link is here, and you will be most pleased. In February of this year, through his publishing firm, Raven's Dreams Press, he's going to be republishing Dane Rudhar's book, an astrological mandala. And that's about the 360 Sabian symbols, and will be available on Amazon, which is amazing. I just last checked. It's like $175 because it's out of print. Yeah. So this is a great contribution.
So wait. Yeah, don't get it now. Wait for a couple months and it'll be a regular price. Yeah, and add in whatever you need to about Wendy. Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you. And with Wendy, did I put that down? No, I did. I meant to add it. Wendy is the tutor for, Wendy, tell me what it was. I added it, and I didn't put that slide in here.
That's fine. It's just I'm a tutor for the MA program in Cultural Astronomy and Astrology for Trinity St David, University of Wales and Lampeter.
Well, that's
it's a mouthful.
You know, it is very good because Wales has that wonderful school with Bernadette Brady and about stars. And so that's a great ability. I wish I would have added it because we tried. Well, thank you. So getting to our point here for today, let's see it. I will go to the next slide with all 4 of us. Oh, and myself. I have taught Cosmos, and you can check this if you do look online. There are some big questions, and these are to inspire however it fits. You'll each have just a brief time because we have an hour, less than an hour, but I trust at the half hour we can have an open conversation and you can connect with any thoughts. So whatever might inspire you, and we'll start with, I guess, Katie, what might be most critical of value for online astrological education, or approaches, strategies to best reach that diverse student body audience, or fresh directions that you see online education moving ahead?
All right. Well, hi, everyone from Wet and Wild Santa Cruz. And I first want to just thank Sue and my panelists, because I think this is such a relevant topic, astrology and education, and so critical to astrology's potential to really make a difference and change the collective, which I know we're going to be addressing later. But I think that, educating the next generation of professional astrologers, as well as the novice learners, is just such a key issue. So thank you so much. Sue and I had talked about it way back in May in Norwalk, and here we are. So thanks, Sue, for actually getting it off the ground. I just thought I'd start very, very, very quickly by taking us back in time, to the 1980s, because that was when I was just first getting interested in astrology. And on a side note, it was the first time that I saw my colleague, Stephen Forrest, actually live. And it was the first time I had my first professional astrology reading with Gregory Nalbandian. And I think the panelists may know the Nalbandian family as being such carriers of the torch of our sacred craft, and that those in the audience are a very important family in astrology. But Gregory, when he saw my chart, he said, "You will be in higher education your whole life." And here I was, this hippie girl, walked in right off the street. And I was like, how did he know that, And I think many of us have started out that way. We had a really good reading with somebody and we were just amazed by it. That's experiential learning. We learned through experience, right? So to get back to this idea of the 80s and 90s, and actually early 2000s as well, is that education as a whole was primarily based on old models of the teacher getting up on stage, pontificating, the professor professing, or maybe the Socratic method where the teacher would say a question and the student would answer. And astrology, it was like back in 1980 or 90s, it was like basically, unless you were fortunate enough to have a town where there was live classes or you could take a correspondence course, it was pretty hard. It was like we compiled a bunch of books and had to have a lot of self-motivation and to learn. But since that time, there's been a lot of emphasis on catering to diverse needs of students and being more student-centered in learning. And one way I could demonstrate this real quickly is I recently was in a group workshop with Vietnamese students, and they shared how much they learn through group interaction with each other and how important that is. And we hear this concept with Latinx students as well. This idea of La Familia, which is, of course, having a family or support system is really, really important, but also just being able to work with one another back and forth. And in the astrology world, we might see this in a webinar. And don't take me wrong, I love webinars. We hear the wise elder astrologer sharing their wisdom, but notice how lively the chats often are. And how is it that we can best tap into that? Because I think especially if we talk about diversity, there's this whole idea of age cohorts or age generations. And how do we bring in, especially the younger generation that learns more often in these ways? So there's ethnicity or cultural context or gender preference, but there's also this idea of tapping into different age groups. And even my age generation, I'm post second Saturn return. So we tend to like that, professor on the stage. And so how do we then incorporate all these voices? And so when I worked with Stephen in establishing the Forrest Center for Evolutionary Astrology, I've been working with Stephen for about a quarter of a Saturn cycle, about 7 years. And we got together and we were like, we want to create a school that has a variety of methods. And it was a challenge and still is a challenge. We're constantly tweaking things, but having different courses that our program lasts about 3.5 to 4 years, the professional track, and then how to keep people on board and not get burnt out. So having different ways of learning, study group calls where they can work on Zoom together interactively for those that learn best with that teaching method. And then also, Zoom interactions with the teacher, like having a Q&A with Stephen or our tutors, but also asynchronous classes. Because I think another thing about diversity is recognizing that some students have a big family at home or they have a hard work schedule. So how are they going to juggle all this? And by having asynchronous as an option where students can read and write and get engaged and be evaluated is also really important. And so I guess just to wind up, I think all my colleagues, I think we're all doing this, and I think it's great. And I think it's the next step in education. But I do really want to advocate for building a sense of community, of course, La Familia, the family at our schools. But also key is active engagement to keep the rigor in place so that we can train people so that they can really learn the skills they need to learn, because I think active learning is really, really important. So I was just thinking, Mars was recently retrograde in Gemini. And for me, it was like a lot of reassessing, what are multiple perspectives on pedagogy or how do we teach? And so, anyway, so that's kind of my sort of thoughts about it. And I look forward to hearing about it, what everyone else has to share. And thanks again.
Yes, thank you so much, Katie. I'm glad we started off there with a little history to kind of bring us up to speed, but however anybody else wants to do it is fine. Well, we'll go ahead with Omari. We'll kind of stick to the same routine of how we introduced. It helps my brain to have some format. So Omari, what are your thoughts about with Kepler College as you're representing and the other institutions of the ways to address education, the critical value of online, perhaps, or education itself, the approaches or strategies for the diversity, and the maybe fresh approaches? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, like I was too.
Okay.
Hermes
Thank
is
you,
with
Sue.
us.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And again,
Yeah.
thank you for inviting me to be a part of the panel today. So to answer your question, the critical value of online education is that online education removed those traditional time and space barriers that do exist with traditional education. For example, you have that 8 o'clock class offered on Mondays and Wednesdays, and either you can make it to that class or not. And with the online education model, particularly when it's asynchronous, that 8 o'clock in the morning time frame does not apply. That is something that certainly, I think, appealed to those adult learners, those learners who have that La Familia, as my colleague, Dr. Katie stated. The online education is it filled a niche in the market, and it actually took a gentleman to come along to establish online education and at an accelerated pace. It was not initially started or embraced by traditional schools. Also with online education, I teach online, and in that model, I'm a facilitator. I facilitate the course. In other words, I am the guide on the side, and I am not the sage on the stage, which is a fit for the traditional learning model. And we also want to keep in mind as professional astrologers that there are two things we want to focus on. One is astrology, the subject matter itself, and also actually learning how to educate. For example, there are the various learning taxonomies that exist, such as Bloom's taxonomy, and we have lower order thinking skills as well as higher order thinking skills. And for those astrology schools that have different levels of learning, it's important to build that in as a part of the curriculum instruction and design, and to just move it forward. When we talk about, and I will add, as far as a diverse student body or audience, I think it works very well when the administrators, as well as the trustees, and as well as the faculty members are a reflection of their student body.
Mhm.
That helps. As an African American man, I do look at that, and respectfully, if it's too lily white, I question whether or not that's a safe space for me to be in. I look and I question it when I don't see diversity. And diversity is something you see at face value when you walk into a room. Either it's present or it is absent. And then for the what directions do we see online education moving in? I think just for astrology schools or astrology education, I just really like to see more research according to the scientific method. I think we have an overabundance of the anecdotal and subjective parts of astrology, which I affectionately refer to as the artsy-tartsy part of astrology, which we need that, and there's a place for that, but there's such an overabundance of it. How do we really move the ball forward with respect to not just online education, but specifically with astrology serving as the subject matter? And yeah, so thank you for asking.
Oh, thank you, Omari. I love some of these notes because it brings it to a whole nother level. And you're right. I went to a very diverse school, and I was realizing it just gives me such pleasure to interact with people from different ideas. And of course, I can be represented in different ages and everything. So this is good. And I don't know if I have time to comment on all these things both, but also about, and I am studying just now with Linda Berry with vibrational astrology, if I can just commit my time. So I understand the aspect. Good. Wendy, Stacy over there, and the evening hours of England. Hello. And
Hi, Sue. Thanks for having me back.
yes, it's always a pleasure. And the best ways to address education, the most critical of value online or teaching, because I know you do both in schools also, and what approaches or strategies for that diversity, and or possibly fresh directions or anything else. Glad to hear.
Thank you. Well, I echo a lot of what Katie and Omari says as well. I think what is most critical of value for me is, I mean, I have a Sagittarius moon in the 9th house. So what really excited me about online learning, of course, was having an incredibly international student forum where not only will you get the diversity of students, you learn from them, they learn from you, but it's also they learn from each other. And it's amazing when you have people from, South Africa and Japan and Australia and America, and everyone is in the same classroom, and then they end up in the same WhatsApp group and the same forums and things like that. I find that, it's part of our globalization and where we're moving to. It's where we have to move to. So for me, that is what is just so valuable. And it's not just diversity in social or cultural. It's also in age, as Katie was saying. And when Katie was talking about that, it reminded me of a conference we held last year for the Astrological Association. And we were this woman who was in her 80s, late 80s, and quite disabled and living quite remotely in the UK, really moved a lot of us. She was very emotional and told us she had not been able to get to anywhere for 12 years. So it was a really big deal for her. So we always think we're catering for a younger audience, but I learned a lot from her, and there's a lot of people out there that don't get that access where online learning can, of course, do that for. I think one of the things that we, in terms of approaches, we need to learn from our students. As astrologers, we learn from our clients, and we also learn from our students. We need to adapt to different learning. I think both Amari and Katie were talking about, the old school. Yeah, I mean, I was teaching, first taught my first class in 1989, quite different format, quite different audience, of course, as well, quite much different to it is today. We need to adapt and learn, but I also feel personal pressure to also keep our own teaching skills up to speed. So our approaches to learning and teaching need to adapt with the needs of an ever-changing generations as they're coming through, and they are ever-changing. I do like Amari mentioned about time and space, which is great. I love that. And, it's I mean, I love it that students can come to classes, in their pajamas, because sometimes it's 1 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, or they can turn their camera off and eat. That's what they want to do. That's absolutely fine. We couldn't do that back in the day, if you like. So, these sort of things are important. I also remember even the online learning. I mean, I held our first conference in 2007 for the Mayo School. I think we had 5 people. No one even knew how to use Skype back then, let alone, Illuminate, which is the software platform we were using. So, it's been steady. And, if one can say anything positive came out of COVID-19, it's not that, but is that, everyone realizes now they can use these platforms, and they do have access, and they have access to a lot of free material, which is great. Amari said something about research, and I absolutely agree. As a researcher myself, I'm very rigorous, and I think Katie mentioned it as well. Excuse me, in terms of rigor, it does need to be a lot more research. I think the online platforms going forward, we're getting saturated now. That is what is the very challenging and negative impact of so many schools and education programs on offer. Although I'm sitting here with 3 colleagues who have really good education programs, but my concern is there's a lot of not so great education, astrological education out there. It needs a lot of filtering. It needs a lot of rigor. And I think our jobs as professional astrologers, which we all are here, is to ensure that filtering is in place, because, as a mother of young women in their 20s, and their friends all do astrology, but, there's a lot of that they have access to a lot of bad information, which constantly shocks me. So it's really, I think it's really important that we stay tuned in and understand what is good education, and what is good research. And that is really where I feel our roles are going forward.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. These are all tying in. And Nathan has reminded me that we need to take a break. So we will get back to Tony and conclude, because they're tying in so beautifully. And that'll give me a moment to refresh those slides and also get some notes here. So we'll be right back with January 15th, Educational and Astrology with Wendy Stacy, Katie CADGE, Tony Howard, and Omari Martin. Thank you. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the furthest visible planet by the eye. By leaving a cycle based on meaningfulness and truth, Capricorn's energy establishes social boundaries in a structure incorporating rules, authority, and ethics. As a cardinal earth sign depicted by a sea goat climbing from the sea up to the top of a mountain, Capricorn overcomes fears through goals and ambitions to achieve mastery.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to NewProSupplements.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, January 22nd, it's my next behavior teaching show with Walter Stoffel, author of Lance, A Spirit Unbroken, and Nathan, of course. I'll pick up where I left off last time, and we'll get to individual cases, starting with Lance. We'll talk about what we could have done to help a dog like him before, and what we could do about it now. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Conversation you won't find on the rest of the dial. Alternative Talk 1150.
Okay, we're back again. Tony, we'll begin with you. That's great. And let's see, I guess I should get back to my slides. Nathan, can we? Okay, there we are. And I did update them, as you will see, I believe. But I know you know the questions anyway. Generally, your feedback on the most critical value, what approaches, strategies for this diversity, or fresh directions?
Absolutely. I'll try to keep it short, Sue. In terms of for your question, what might be of critical value in terms of online astrological education? At Astrology University, we kind of have structured, it's especially our 4-year training program, on 3 main ideas: application, engagement, and feedback. So we give students a chance to apply what they're learning. They get to really engage with the process, engage with each other's, engage with the instructors as well. And they also have the opportunity to get feedback on their work as they go. You know, I was thinking about, so many people in astrology are self-taught. And when we're self-taught, a lot of times we read a great book, and we get really inspired. We don't do something tangible with those ideas, and then we just look for the next great inspiring book. And then I've talked with students who say, I've been studying astrology for 20 years, and I look at a chart and I still don't know where to start. And so this is kind of who we created this program for. And we give students a chance to apply what they're learning as they go, and that helps with retention, of course. In terms of strategies to reach a diverse audience, that's one of our main missions at Astrology University, is to help train a new and more diverse pool of astrologers, of professional astrologers out there, so that this time, 10 years from now, we can really easily meet Omari's goal of, as we're kind of trying to create a conference or a panel or something, it's not hard at all to make it diverse. It takes 0 effort. To that end, we have been really successful with our scholarship program. So we have financial needs scholarships, but we also have scholarships specifically targeting Black folks and Indigenous folks, First Nations folks, and that scholarship is a full ride scholarship. We make it very easy to apply, and we always have more students applying than we're able to provide scholarships for, but we do our best. And the folks who have participated in that program have been very engaged with the material, and that's not always the case when you sort of give something away for free. So I can just tell you that we do have a diverse student body, and these folks are starting to graduate from our program, and they'll filter out into the community. In terms of fresh directions, I try to stay on top of online educational trends, and I keep reading about how we're all supposed to make our materials shorter and shorter to accommodate shortening attention spans, especially among younger audiences. And I can imagine that eventually the limits of that are going to become more obvious even to those folks as they try to learn astrology, which is a rich subject and takes a lot of time, honestly, to study, which is one of the main reasons we created a 4-year program, so that students would have that sense that, I'm not going to learn this over the weekend. And as those students seek more depth engagement, I think they'll be more open to longer form study materials. But to that issue, we do try to shorten our videos within a course. So there may be an hour and a half class that we've split into 3 videos or 4 videos to try to accommodate shorter attention spans. Yeah, that's one thing that I've seen being projected, is that students are getting used to shorter and shorter formats, and that online education should try to meet that.
Well, we have a full circle here, and I had to think to myself about the time span because of these incremental spots, because people tying it together, that experiential energy, such as CATIE, you first introduced and has been brought up, to really integrate it, like the meaningfulness, the use, the value of it. It takes time. And I'm thinking too, with Jupiter in Aries and Taurus, is so visual, and people need that. So it's a toggle. I guess people need an overview and then time to sink in. I know I'm learning this vibrational astrology, and that's a bit how it's figured. I want to ask each one of you, though, before we finish, what you might have in your private practice or in school, however it is that's new that you would like, or coming up that you would like to identify. And we'll go backwards. Tony, I think we're in high school here, Howard. No, but Tony, I know that you have a library of Dane Rudhyar, so perhaps you can begin informing people about that. Or
Absolutely, yeah. So, oh, no worries. We have weekend webinars and online courses, and we have this 4-year program. But yeah, I did want to tell folks about this Dane Rudhyar Audio Archives Library, which has been online for a while, but the woman who was running it is Nikki is no longer running the website. Mm-hmm. And so I partnered with her and also with Layla Rail, who was Dane Rudhyar's last wife, to offer these recordings online. They're all, for free, and there's a whole resource out there of Rudhyar recordings. And we're also working with Layla to get Dane Rudhyar's out of print books back into print. So you'll see more of those throughout the next couple of years. And we're really excited about that. But for any of our upcoming events, you can just head over to astrologyuniversity.com/events and check out our online event calendar. And then we have a whole great archive of online classes. Yeah.
Very good. True. Newsletters are really handy. I get mine. Okay. Then going backwards, Wendy, what would be, do you have, I know maybe what's on your fortnight or some other particular event or astrology conference?
Well, we hold certificate and diploma programs all the time. We have online set dates, but we also have offline that people can join as well. We do have a particular workshop coming up in a couple of weeks, which is a new one. It's called Menarche to Menopause, a menstrual measure of time. And that's looking at menstrual life cycles of women through the lens of astrology, looking at it from the mundane perspective, the natal, the anthropological, the mythological, and the medicinal. So we're inviting people to come along to understand women's menstrual cycles through the eyes of astrology. So that's on the 28th of January. So you can go to the mayoastrology.com and get the details from there. And there are still discounted prices that are still available for the next couple of days. So that's it. Yeah, we're really excited about doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really important transition. And just before you leave, I know it's a little over this, on every fortnight, every 2 weeks, Thursday, how does one actually tune into that?
So you go onto the Mayo site, you click on the link for the events, and you register for the current climate. And basically, we have hundreds of astrologers registered. It's a conversation for those interested, whatever level you're at. It's a conversation on what's going around the world. It's not UK-centric. It is looking at, whatever's happening. We're looking at where things are going to happen. We're looking at the lunations. We're looking at the cycles.
Good.
And it's a very informal hour and a half. So it's very casual.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know, yes, San Francisco NCGR with Gemini Brett, who is now the president, also facilitates one. And I'm involved with WASA, which is Washington State Astrological Association. And we've just begun one called Astro Chat, because this collective time for people to begin to try to converse is really important.
Yeah, we started it in April 2020 when everyone went into lockdown.
Yes.
And we just haven't stopped. So
okay.
Yeah, it goes.
Very good. Omari, with your school now voted to be really a popular engagement for people, what would you want to contribute of any sort that is coming up?
Well, certainly want to take a moment to recognize and pay some honor to our founder, Maggie Nalbandian. And Dr. Katie mentioned Gregory, her son, a few moments ago. And so we do offer 2 scholarships, the Maggie Nalbandian Scholarship, and we also offer a diversity scholarship. And we invite those who represent any historically underrepresented group to apply for that scholarship. Something else we have coming up is a certificate on Vedic astrology. We're currently developing a course about electional astrology. And I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before that. We also have this great relationship with the Celestial Arts and Education Library, and Dr. Jen Zart is the founder, executive director of that. And most recently, Kepler College has established a reciprocity relationship with the American Federation of Astrologers. So if you complete the extended fundamental certificate at Kepler College, all you need to do is let AFA know, or let me know. I'm on the board of organizations. And so once we receive your application and we check with Kepler College, you did in fact complete the extended fundamental certificate, you are then granted the advanced membership status with the American Federation of Astrologers. And also, I am the research director for AFA, so I'll be heading up some efforts with that and coordinating some activities with Kepler College as well, relative to research for astrology or astrologers. Thank you, Sue.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, Jen Zart and her library located down in Olympia, which is Cali, which is, anyway, you can find it. And I guess she has a meeting room, but also with Laura, with Maggie's library. Libraries are important. I think we'll all agree. This is wonderful. Katie, what might you want to share before we jump in with our last moments and try to get through this kettle of thought?
Yeah, well, first I want to say thanks to my colleagues, because I think we're all so much on the same, same page, and really wonderful to hear everyone's comments. And I second that point that I think just about everybody made about rigor and the need for research. And so one of the exciting things the FCEA is doing, which I'd like to share, which and Tony, I mean, that Dane Rudyard project sounds just so wonderful. We're doing sort of a similar archival program at the FCA for Stephen's material. So we have countless Q&A calls, and we're indexing them. We have our diversity scholarship involves work study, and so that the students have been key in helping us put together a really large archive of hours of calls. So we're really excited about that. And we have to remember the FCA is a college, and I honor my friends at universities, but there's certainly wonderful to having a liberal arts education, but we take a focused approach to the Stephen Forrest method of evolutionary astrology, following his teaching. And so that's our contribution, we hope, to the research developments and some of the ways that we're trying to support more academic rigor again, and to expand the discipline of astrology. And other than that, we also have an open house coming up on March 27th at 5 p.m. So I think it was Wendy, one of the participants, saying we just have to join our sign up for our newsletter, and that's when we'll announce our open public event. We're also doing something for cross days, and so we'll have a free event for people to check out the Q&A. Stephen will lead a question and answer on Beltane on May 1st, and Stephen's doing an in-person Omega workshop during Lamas, August 1st, but that's not specifically an FCEA project, but it's a lot of our tutors and myself will be there. So again, we're a focused trade school college, but I think we're doing our share to contribute.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you all for. Let's see, I have thoughts I want to say, but I just want to make sure, do we have anything that we're missing here? The panelists, again, if you can go to this slideshow, or just go to Talk Cosmos. You'll find everybody there. And also if you want to subscribe. Okay, so we can get rid of those, Nathan, and we can get to the heart of our thoughts now. Because I'm thinking this is such a language. Astrology we know is a language. But as we talk about the anecdotal part, which is true, one gets like, yes, it's applicable. But this research idea, which is becoming increasingly important instead of cherry picking, as it said, but to blend these, but it makes me realize that what people love is a story, isn't it? And we get that story depending how it can still be shared. And I was thinking about the diversity. I'm throwing these out for you to think, because I took Alan Clay's class, and England, Great Britain, I must say, with your Commonwealth, immediately brings up all these different students from all around the world. It's incredible. More than the United States, it seems. Here, where might be, even the States, it's like, do you ever really see students from the South if you're in the North? Not so much. Or the East Coast. I mean, there's somewhat more along but it's still not the same. And I found it quite intriguing to just hear people's thoughts and whatnot. Because for me, I know as a student, because I'm a perpetual student, that gaining their thoughts, but it's that experiencing it, integrating it. So, at any rate, we have a good 5 minutes. Not as much time as I thought. I see Omori smiling, and
yes, I'm smiling. So the research is so important, but I think the pink polka dotted elephant in the room is one of quality education. And astrology schools, yes, in particular Kepler, for obvious reasons, really aiming for that good housekeeping seal that we know as accreditation. And in the state of Illinois, in the late 30s, in the state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago, there was an ordinance or a list of things that you could not do. Necromancy, card reading, magnetism, psychology was on the list, as well as astrology. And what has happened since the late 30s up until today, you can go to school, you can get a bachelor's degree in psychology, you can get a master's degree in psychology, you can get a PhD in psychology. However, you cannot get any of those degrees from an accredited institution in astrology. And I believe if we would follow those same steps that the psychology people established, that is a pathway towards accreditation for astrology. That right there would be such a paradigm shift for us to establish, one, standards for knowledge. Everything doesn't go. Some stuff is too far left or perhaps too far right. We need to establish standards for practice. Some things should be, no, we're not doing that. It's okay. And then we need to have some standards for behavior relative to ethics. And one organization, the International Association for Ethics in Astrology, which my colleague Wendy Stacy and I serve on, is leading that charge. So I just think that's what's really missing for online education for astrology.
It does make one realize, as we expand to be global without boundaries, essentially, that we need boundaries. I'm thinking of, like, I know Kepler College is also hosting Toastmasters for astrologers with Donna Young that I am involved with. And one of the first things you learn is time constraint, that or writing a book. We won't go on. It stays. Wendy knows that you can be being too broad. You need to still have the boundaries. Okay. Anyway, I won't talk as much. I do get inspired by you. Yeah. Tony or Wendy, Katie?
Can I just say that a couple of things, just to reply to the Commonwealth thing. I just wanted to clarify, particularly with all the news around at the moment as well, with floating around it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure there is the relationship, I guess, as what people perhaps think. And some of us who are native New Zealanders don't necessarily feel that, that we have different perspectives on the Commonwealth and what it means and what it represents, irrespective of me sitting here in London, in England, UK. So just to say there are still those diverse perspectives, but what Amari was saying, and I absolutely agree, and I'm all for it. And I remember when I was really young and I was on a real mission with getting astrology mainstream and things like that. But then it was actually Nick Campion who had watched the movie Minority Report and came to a board meeting for the Astrological Association, and we had a discussion, the AA board at the time. This is whenever that was, I think, about 18 years ago, whenever it was, about the danger as well, and how the actual framing of how astrology in the mainstream would be a very, very incredibly hard task. Someone has to do it. But in the wrong hands as well. And I'm not saying that I'm not for it, or but we need to be. It's a lot of I mean, I've known people that have used it for employment, and
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, Wendy, it's good. I'll just jump. It's like bread. We used to have Wonder Bread, whatever that stuff was. It was horrible.
Can I chime in?
Rye.
Yeah, can I chime in? I think also in the spirit of Mars's recent retrograde in Gemini, that I think honoring that there's multiple perspectives. So for instance, in the formal higher educational world, accreditation involves a spectrum of methodologies, and I think we need to all be on board with that. So our school has sort of a formal certification process, and we work our students really hard, but we're in a particular methodology, and I honor those that have a more university approach. But I think we all are pretty much, I think the panel here, it's kind of like preaching to the choir. I think we're all on the same page for that. But I would like to just add one other thing in, because I know Tony hasn't spoken yet. But I want to say that just getting back to some of the things that came up during the program is that I think our place as educators is to move the larger collective for change. And Wendy had mentioned about the problem with something like social media, where we've all seen these memes, on Facebook or whatever, that are just atrocious, and the lack of quality of those types of things. And that I think in order to get a better place, we have to take into account the middle road of reaching the general public. So what I'm getting at is that, we need a place for more rigor. We need to make more place for research, and definitely this advanced work with Stephen or with Dane Rudar and all that. But this idea of how do we touch that middle ground where we're reaching people who maybe don't know what the word ingress means, right? So we get these people, we get a social media world that is simple and then too
Katie, that's good.
I think. Yeah, excellent. But anyway, I just want to throw that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Tony, you can close us, and with the music, keep talking. We have about a minute.
Sorry, Tony.
No, I have no worries. I just want to say I'm really excited to be teaching astrology with a school at this moment, because we've had such a resurgence of interest in astrology, a lot of popular interest, and of course that means that there's varying quality out there. But I think that presents an opportunity for all of us here to meet those students who, reach a little bit deeper. The memes are entertaining at first, and there'll be a bunch of students who are looking for something deeper, and they'll find us, and we're here and we're ready for them. So I'm really excited for this moment.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
It is true. And I'm thinking myself, fear, the apparent evidence that is not happening or something, that besides the fact that the house is on fire. And so thinking that the opportunity of astrology, I don't know if it's like jazz where there's only a certain percentage of people that really love it, or if astrology can reach everybody. But yet our goals, I think all of you have just said amazing, wonderful things. I don't know if we should have a second one to explore more, but
why not?
It's a maybe. Yes. And we can get down to how do we get experiential? How do we really integrate? How do we meet one another and forge that language? Well, we're beginning. Thank you, Omari Martin. Thank you, Tony Howard. Thank you, Wendy Stacy. And thank you, Katie CADGE, Dr. CADGE. It's been a
Thank
real
you, Sue,
Thank you.
and everybody.
Thank you.